So I'm going to start a new book with y'all. I've been kind of inching through it. As you can see, I read several different books at one time and in different places. This book is called A Philosophy of Mitzvot, the religious, ethical concepts of Judaism, their roots in biblical law, and their oral tradition. And it's by Gersion Appel, A-P-P-E-L. It's a good book. I like the way he's able to synthesize the material. He does tend to use longer sentences at times, which means you have to really get a good running start sometimes at where he's going. But I'd like to read just a few chapters that I found very interesting from the introduction, and then start chapter 1. The introduction is called the Mitzvot, their nature and import in Jewish philosophy. The basic elements of Jewish law covering the full range of human experience are the Mitzvot, the commandments of God. Ethical norms and religious concepts are, in Judaism, given concrete expression through the Mitzvot of the Torah, by means of which the Jewish ideal of morality and its commitment of faith are translated into the reality of life. As formulated by the Halakha, the commandments are the divine blueprint for the ideal life. They constitute a divinely ordered discipline for man's existence, cultivating his ethical concerns for his fellow man and directing his spiritual life in the service of God, whether of a positive nature, as in decreeing action, or a negative nature prohibiting certain acts, or enjoining self-control. They encompass every aspect of life, both the sacred and the secular, the private interest of the individual and the public interest of society. The mitzvah has its validity, essentially, as a divinely revealed command, its sanction and ultimate origin traceable to a transcendent being. The revealed laws form the basis of the eternal covenant. Thus, the Bible says, these are the statutes and the ordinances and the laws which the Lord made between him and the children of Israel in Mount Sinai by the hand of Moses. Leviticus 26:46. In its response to the divine command, which is in essence God's call to man, Israel is drawn into an intimate relationship with God in a community of existence, which, in the biblical tradition, may be characterized as the covenanted faith community. The mitzvot thus impart a religious dimension to life. By performing the mitzvot in obedience to the divine command, man is able to relate to God and serve him. Through the involvement of the whole of his physical and intellectual being, of his material and spiritual nature, they afford him the means of attaining an awareness of living continually in the presence of God. Chapter 1 is called the Taryag Mitzvot. Taryag refers to the 613 commandments. The tradition of Taryag Mitzvot, which teaches that the commandments of the Torah total 613, is recorded in the Talmud by Rabbi Simlei, who states 613 commandments were communicated to Moses, 365 negative commandments corresponding to the number of days in the solar year, and 248 positive commandments corresponding to the number of members of the human body. This tradition, which is apparently of long standing, since it has also been found in earlier Tanaic literature, was generally accepted as the legal frame for the codification of Jewish law. The classification of the mitzvot, I think, is the last thing I'll talk about today. The mitzvot are divided into positive and negative commandments, of course, as we just heard. The general categories include commandments that are obligatory upon all Israel, both men and women, everywhere and in all times. Commandments that are obligatory everywhere and all times, but only upon Israelites and not upon priests or Levites. Commandments that are obligatory only upon Levites. commandments that are obligatory upon priests only, everywhere and in all times, commandments that are obligatory upon the king of Israel only, commandments that are obligatory upon the whole community and not upon the individual alone, commandments that are obligatory only in a specified place and a specified time, namely in the land of Israel, and in a time that the majority of the people of Israel is there, commandments whose obligation differs between men and women, as between Israelites, priests, and Levites, commandments that are obligatory constantly, such as the commandments to love God, to fear God, and the like, commandments that must be observed at a specific time, such as the commandment of Shabbat, the lulav, the shofar, rest on festivals, the recitation of Shema, and the like, and commandments whose observance is contingent upon a given circumstance, and which are therefore not obligatory unless that circumstance should arise, as, for example, the commandment to give the hired man his wages in the appointed time, which is obligatory only upon one who has hired workers. The commandments which are obligatory at all times are 6. These are always binding and we must be constantly mindful of them during our lifetime. To believe in God, not to believe in any other besides God, to affirm his unity, to love God, to fear him, and to not stray after wayward thoughts or after waywardness of one's own eyes. I think we'll stop there for today. I've enjoyed reading with y'all and hope you have a good day and have a Shabbat Shalom.